Alright, so polynomial functions. A polynomial function, we know poly just means a lot, right? So this is a function that is having higher powers. We can have f of x having the highest power as power 3. It can just be like this, or we can have other things, x power 2, x and a constant. So all you consider is it has got the it's not linear, let me say. Okay, it has got a higher power like that. It's not linear. Something that is linear should just have x and a constant. But as you're able to see from here, it has got an highest power of 3. So it's a polynomial function. Okay, so you can have also power 2. It is still a polynomial, but a polynomial with power 2 is called a quadratic. A polynomial with power 3 is called a cubic function. So all these are polynomial functions. Now, just as we've learned how to factorize quadratic functions and how to sketch them, even here we are going to now consider cubic functions, how to factorize them and how to sketch them. That is what we want to understand on this polynomial. Now I want you people to go together with me slowly because I'm not rushing anything, we are starting together. Let me start with a very simple polynomial f of x. By the way, I'm getting from Unza exam past papers these questions which I'm using. So let's say we have got f of x which is equal to x power 3 minus 3x power 2 minus 10x plus a 24. So what we are going to do is, for this polynomial that we have, we are going to factorize it. We are also going to sketch it. So those are the two things that we're going to do for this polynomial: factorize and sketch. And then I'm also going to solve an inequality using this polynomial because it's part of what you're supposed to do. When you want to factorize a polynomial highest power 3, the best method you can use is a try and error method. So what do you get to do using that method? So what you do is start with a 1, okay? Just start with a 1, a very simple number 1. Put it into this function where there is x. It should give you 0 as the answer. So let's say I get 1, I put here. That will be 1 to the power 3, which is still 1, right? And then we put also at the other position there, that will give us negative 3. And then we put also here where there is 10, negative 10, that will be a negative 10 and then plus 24. So we are going to have 1 minus 3 minus 10 plus 24. Now let me ask, does that give us a 0? It doesn't give us a 0, meaning that 1 is... Now I want to mention a word. I will not mention that word, I'm going to talk about it. If 1 fails, go to negative 1. Put negative 1 where there is x. Negative 1 to the power 3, that's negative 1. And then 3 times negative 1 squared. And then minus 10, negative 1 plus 24. If you do your mathematics, you are going to find also negative 1. If you put where there is x, it will not give us a 0. It will not give us a 0. Sorry if it had to break a bit. I hope you can follow me properly. So since 1 and negative 1 have failed to give us a 0, let's try 2. So we again go where there is x. Okay, so if I put where there is x, I put 2 to the power 3. What's the answer? 2 to the power 3?
8.
That would be 8, thank you. And then minus, I'll say 3 multiplied by 2 squared. We know 2 squared is 4, right? 4 times 3 is a 12. And then minus 10 multiplied by 2, we know that is a 20. And then we have got a plus 24. Who can tell me the answer? What will be the answer here?
Zero.
Thank you. It's going to give us a 0. Now remember what value we used. We had used what? X is equal to 2. This value we used gave us a 0. So this is called the try and error. Now when I find one value using the try and error, I'm going to use a synthetic method. Synthetic method or synthetic division. What do you do? I'm going to write something like this. Alright, something like that. And then I'll look at this polynomial which is here. Make sure that if the highest power is the 3, the next power should be 2, the next power should be 1, and then the next power should be 0. This is x power 1. This 24, it doesn't have any x. It means that x is raised to the power 0. That's the meaning. So make sure that it decreases like that. Otherwise, if we just had something like x power 3 plus x, I needed to write it as x power 3. I don't have x power 2, so I'll write it as 0 x power 2 because I don't have, and then plus x, and then I also say plus 0 because I need to have from the highest power until I reach a constant. So make sure that you do that if they've given something that is not having powers decreasing like that. Okay, so from here I'm going to get the coefficients. What is the coefficient of x power 3? Thank you, that is 1. I'll put 1 here just next to where 2 is, but in this after the line. What is the coefficient of x power 2 here?
Negative 3.
Negative 3, very good. And then the coefficient of x? Very good.
Negative
Very good, negative 10. And then the coefficient of x power 0?
24.
24. You also get a constant 24. Good. So what we are going to now do from here is it down here I'm going to put a 0. And then I'll get this one on top. I'll add with the 0 which is down. So I'll say 1 plus 0. I'll write 1 here. That's the answer. Okay, 1. And then I'll get this 1 and multiply with this 2 here. That will give me a 2. And the 2 I'm going to put it here. And then again I'm going to add these 2. Negative 3 plus 2, that is a negative 1, isn't it? And then this negative 1 I'll multiply with a 2 there. That is going to give me negative 2. And then I'll say negative 10 plus negative 2. That will give me negative 12. The negative 12 I'll still multiply with the 2 which is there. That is going to give us negative 24. So when you reach at the end here, you are going to put a line like this. And then you add 24 plus negative 24. What is the answer?
0.
It's 0. So this is the remainder. So make sure that if this you found x to be 2, right? Such that when you substituted here you found 0. So make sure that if you do this method, this thing you find here should always be a 0. If you don't find a 0, then that value you found was wrong. This number which you see here is a remainder. So please, if your mic is on, kindly switch it off. Unless you have got a question, you can open it, you speak. Are we moving together so far? Is anyone having a question so far?
Sir,
Okay. All right. Priska, yes?
yes, sir. I was asking, so what we're doing right now, what are we doing per se, if I may ask?
Okay, so we are fine. We want to factorize this polynomial. Yes.
Okay.
So I want to factorize a polynomial. So what we did is we first got, when you were given a polynomial, we started with a try and error method. We got a 1, we tried to put where there is x in this function. We wanted what to give us 0. So 1 didn't give us 0. We went to -1, we put where there is x, it still didn't give us 0. And then we went to 2. When we substituted 2 in this function, it gave us 0. So that's why we said x is equal to 2 here, because it gave us 0. And then after that, we got a coefficient starting of power 3. That's a 1 here, that's a coefficient. And then we went to the coefficient of power 2, that's a -3. The coefficient of x, that's a -10. And then we went to the constant, that's a 24, you are able to see at the end there. And then we just put a 0 here. We started to do now some operations. So we started to say 1 plus 0 gave us 1, which is written here. And then this one we multiplied by these
So
two,
I have a question.
which gave us these two. And then, okay, just a moment. And then the same -3 we added to these two. That gave us the -1 you see down here. And then -1 we multiply by 2. That gave us -2. And then again we added -10 plus -2. That gave us a -12. -12 again we multiplied with the 2. That gave us a -24 at the end. And then we also added 24 plus -24. That gave us a 0. And we've just said that the last number here is a remainder. And you need to make sure that you find a 0 at the end there if you want to factorize. So the one who has got a question, please go on.
When trying out the numbers,
Yes.
is there a limit, or you can just like try any numbers, or maybe there's just a limit on the numbers that you're trying?
Okay, for me, I would advise you to say just start with a 1. If it fails, go to a -1. If it fails, go to 2. If it fails, -2. It fails, the 3 fails, -3. But you are also going to look at this number which is at the end here. Mostly it is the number that goes into this number which is at the end. So you actually consider the number in front of x squared and the constant. When you multiply them, the numbers that are able to go into their product mostly are the ones you consider. But I'll tell you, just go to 1, +1, -2, positive and -3, positive and negative, until you find the one which proves.
All right.
Okay, so after you do this, now you've seen this value here. We are now going to write, I'll now introduce the word factor. So this, I'll write it as a factor. So instead of saying x is equal to 2, I'll take 2 the other side, so it will be x minus 2. So I'll write it like this. So this is a factor. Okay, x minus 2. And then I'll write another bracket. This value of these you found down here, they're actually also factors. So the first number here you are able to see is the coefficient of x squared. This number you're able to see is the coefficient of x, and this one is the constant. So this is actually x squared minus x minus 12. So if you factorize this, this is what you are going to be able to get. Are we good so far? Are we okay at this point? Are we okay? I bet we are fine. Now we are also going to look at this quadratic which is here. Now, if this quadratic can be factorized, we need to factorize it. If it can't be factorized, we leave it like this, then we are factorized. But this question I've gotten from a past paper, it was saying factorize completely. If I leave it like this, it is not completely. Yeah, these people's networks. Okay, so you people, I've seen other people's microphones are on, others their cameras are on. As you saw, you couldn't, I think you couldn't get me. You couldn't see the board. So those are going to disturb the class. Let's make sure that our microphones and cameras are off. They'll slow my network here and it will cut like it has done now. So let's make sure we do that. Okay, I bet now we can see. Please just make sure that our cameras, microphones are just off. It will make the class move smoothly. So I ended here. Do we have a question from here? Yes, period. Please, you can open your mic and speak. Okay, do we have questions? Should I move? Alright, so I can't get what our friend is saying. I'll go on to factorize to finish the complete factorization. I bet we are able to see what's here. Are they even able to get me? Okay, so I was just saying, the if the mic and a camera is on, it slows the network. So you just make sure that your mic and camera is off, such that when you want to ask a question or contribute, you can now open your microphone. So I was saying we ended here. I don't know if someone has got a question of how we have reached up to this point before we proceed. Anyone who has a question there? We are all good, I bet.
I've got a question, sir.
Yes, please go on.
Actually, I don't know how far I've remained behind. I came here a bit late. Is this the first part?
This is the start. Yes. Okay. So now, I think we're able to see this quadratic. Who can tell me the factors for this quadratic here?
Negative 4 and 3.
Very good. Negative 4 and 3. Now, when you see that a quadratic has got a 1 in front here, in front of x squared, please note negative 1 if it has a 1. And then you know that the factors is negative 4 and 3. Just write this x negative 4. And then you write x positive 3. And then you are factorized. Okay? Direct like that. So this is a complete factorization of this polynomial. So we are factorized. Now let's say they gave you this polynomial, they said sketch it. How would we sketch this polynomial? Now sketching a polynomial function is much easier than sketching even a quadratic, at least at this level. Because at this level, I'm not going to tell you about the turning point of a polynomial. That is to do with calculus. And at this point, we have not done calculus. So to be able to sketch this polynomial, just make sure that you find the x and y intercepts. That's all. The x in, how can you find the x-intercept? What's the value for y for you to be able to find the x-intercept? Very good. So y should be 0. So just make sure that it is a 0 here. Meaning that just equate this one to 0, you are going to find that x is equal to 2. Equate this one to 0, you are going to find that x is equal to 4. Equate this one to 0, you are going to find that x is equal to negative 3. These are the factors, or these, I mean, they are the intercepts. So I'm going to put, we have got negative 3, we have got positive 2, then positive 4. The next we want to find is the y-intercept. Now y-intercept, you just look at this constant. That's the y-intercept. That will happen when x is 0. Like put 0 here, and 0 there. So it will give you 24. Even for quadratics, you only look at a constant. Right. So let's say 24 is here. Yeah, that is the y-intercept. So I'll just put dots here. We know these are the intercepts. So we have got here, we have got here, we have got here, and then we have got here. Now, I like this thing. I like this topic. It's really interesting. Now remember, we have found x is equal to, so let me now just remove this here, and then I write a very nice diagram. Remember the values that you have found, write them in increasing order, right? So I'll write a line, I'll put -3. The next line, I'll put 2. The next line, I'll put 4. Write them in order. And then write the factors which you equated to 0. The first one is x minus 2. The next one is x minus 4. And then the next one is x plus 3. You write them like that. Now I'll start with the first one. When I equated x minus 2 to 0, what did we find? We found a positive 2. Now, can someone tell me what will happen if I get a value of x greater than 2? For example, a 3. I put where there is x here. Am I going to find a positive answer or a negative answer?
A positive answer.
A positive answer, meaning that for this factor, as long as I am above 3, I mean 2, I always get a positive answer. Immediately I cross these two, I'll get a negative answer. You can use, for example, a 1. 1 minus 2 is negative. When I equated x minus 4 to 0, I found a positive 4. So 4 is going to be the demarcation of signs. If I use a positive, I mean any number greater than 4, I put in this function. I mean in that factor, for example, a 5. I'm going to get a positive value. Immediately I cross a 4, it will be a negative sign. When I equated x plus 3 to 0, I found a negative 3. So meaning negative 3 will be the demarcation of signs. If I get any number greater than negative 3, for example, a 2 or a 5 or a 7, just any, I put here to be positive. Immediately I cross a negative 3 to be a negative. Now remember, these three factors are multiplying. So my interest is actually in their product. So in the product of signs. So I'll say these three negatives, if I multiply them, the answer is going to be negative. Positive, negative, negative, if I multiply, I'll get a positive. And then positive, negative, positive, I'll get a negative. Positive, 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 I'll get a positive. That is my interest. My interest is on the product of signs. What does this tell me? This tells me that for all values of x smaller than negative 3, this function is going to be negative. So if I'm here, going up is positive, going down is negative. So when I'm talking about values of x smaller than negative 3, the function is supposed to be down. That's the meaning. So the function is going to be down here. And as we can see, between negative 3 and positive 2, the function is supposed to be positive. Between negative 3 and positive 2. So between this and this, the function is supposed to be positive. Meaning that the function is supposed to be on top here. But remember, it's supposed to cut 24, right? So that's how the function is going to somehow go. And then between positive 2 and 4, the function is supposed to be negative, meaning that's supposed to be down. So meaning that's supposed to go like this, it's supposed to 10. And then above 4, the function is supposed to be positive, meaning that it's supposed to go up. So this is basically the sketch of this graph. Do we have questions? So this is how you get to sketch a cubic function like that. Any question?
Sir, kindly go through when the problem of signs were I'm a bit behind.
Okay. Remember the factors we equated to 0. I've got x minus 2, x minus 4, x plus 3. So those values that you found after equating to 0, just write them down and make sure that you write them in increasing order. Okay? Like this is a number line you are writing on. So always write the smallest to the biggest. Start with negative 3, the next is positive 2, the next is positive 4. and then you've written the factors equated to 0 to find them. And then when you equate x minus 2 to 0, you're going to find a positive 2. Meaning that 2 is going to be a demarcation of signs for this factor, x minus 2. If I use any value greater than 2, for example a 3, I put there, I'm going to find a positive value. If I use any value less than 2, like a 1 or a 0, I'm going to find a negative value, like 0 minus 2 is negative. So for that factor, 2 is a demarcation of signs. When I equated x minus 4 to 0, I found a 4, meaning that for that factor, 4 is going to be a demarcation of signs. If I get a value greater than 4, I substitute where there is x, I'm going to get a positive value. Immediately I cross 4, it should give me negatives. Same with x plus a 3. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay. Yes, it's okay. Yes.
Sylvia, do you have a question? Do we have any other question before I proceed? Yes?
Sorry.
Okay, let's start with Yoram and then we go to Sylvia. It's always very, very important. You should always make it. Always make it. Okay. Yes, Sylvia. I'm not getting you. Piri, you can go on as we are waiting for Sylvia to speak.
So on the last piece, on the quadratic, like after factorizing, we're going to supposed to be x minus 4 and x minus 2, like in the bracket there.
It was supposed to be x minus 4, and remember the factors. You want a number that you can multiply to get negative 12, and when you add you get negative 1. So that is positive 3 and negative 4.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes, please.
I was just asking for an explanation when the x minus 2 there on top.
On this one?
Yes.
Okay, this one, the x minus 2, we found it. Remember, when we got 2, we put in this function, we got a 0. So we said x is equal to 2. When we put in this function, it's going to give us a 0. So we wrote it as a factor. We took to the other side, it became x minus 2. So if negative 2 is the one which gave us a 0, we would have taken it the other side, it would have given us x plus 2. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay.
And now, how do you get the quadratic function now?
The quadratic function, now you use the synthetic method that we are doing. So we wrote down the coefficients of this polynomial which is here. And then we wrote also the value that we have found here, and then there's the process that we got to do. You didn't you didn't see that part?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay. Alright, we'll get to do another example.
Alright, okay.
Uh
So I didn't see how you plotted the graph. The network was bad. Can you kindly explain more?
okay. Uh we just looked at this the product. On the product, that's what we are looking at. Okay, so if you look at the product, the signs which we have got for numbers, I mean for smaller than negative 3, you can see the sign is negative. Are you able to determine that? Like here, this side, Are you able to see that this is negative?
Yes.
So this means that as long as we are talking about all values of x smaller than negative 3, the function is going to be negative. And negative means below the x-axis. So it's going to be down here. And then between negative 3 and positive 2, you can see the function is positive, meaning that it's going to be above the x-axis. So it's supposed to be above, something like that. But remember, it's supposed to pass through 24 because we found that 24 was the y-intercept. And between 2 and 4 is supposed to be negative, meaning it's supposed to be below the x-axis. Make sure that it is smooth, don't draw v's. And then above 4 you can see that it's positive, meaning that it's just supposed to be above like that. So this is what we just joined now.
Alright, sir.
Okay, there's another question. Okay, I bet we are now good. Now just using this same example which is here, I'm not going to rub the product. Please take note of the product. I'm not removing it. I want to show you another thing. So let's say the question was saying solve the inequality x to the power 3 minus 3x squared minus 10x plus 24 is greater than or equal to 0. This is the inequality we are given. The first thing that you do is you do factorize this. And how do you factorize? First, use the trial and error method. Look for a number that you can put into this function for it to get 0. And we have already seen that 2 is a number that you can put in this function to get a 0. So x is equal to 2. To write it as a factor, I'll write it as x minus 2. And then again use the synthetic method to find the other factor. The same thing we did. And we found x squared minus x minus 12. This is greater than or equal to 0. And then again factorize this. That gave us x minus 2, x minus 4, and then x plus 3 greater than or equal to 0, like that. And then when we equated this to 0, now when you are solving an inequality, just equate this to 0. Please don't tamper with this sign, it will confuse you somewhat. So just equate this to 0. So we're going to find x is equal to 2. Equate this to 0, we're going to find x is equal to 4. Equate this to 0, we're going to find x is equal to negative 3. Draw again the table of values which I drew. The same one which I've just rubbed here. Draw it. Your interest is to look at the product. Okay, at the product of signs. Now remember, you want what is greater than 0. Something greater than 0 is positive. Meaning that we are just, our solutions will lie where it is, the function is positive. Where is that? Between negative 3 and positive 2 and from 4 up to infinity. If you can see, I am shading because this is greater than or equal to 0. If it was just greater than, I wouldn't shade. So therefore now the answer to this inequality set, solution set, is going to be negative 3 comma 2 union 4 comma infinity. Infinity, you always use open brackets. So if the question was saying less than, then you get where the product is negative. Those will be your solutions. And that is from negative infinity to negative 3 and then from 2 to 4. So that will be the answer. Do you have questions? Any question? Are we good so far?
No,
Yes, Spirit.
kindly go through again. I'm a bit behind
Where are you behind?
on the issue of solution set.
Okay, so you are just looking at the product, just on the product, and then you're just considering looking at your equation, right? Your inequation is saying greater than or equal to 0. Greater than or equal to 0. So the class is being recorded, don't worry, we are going to also see it. Greater than or equal to 0. So you are only interested where the product is positive, that's greater than 0. Those are the solutions you get. So you can say from negative 3 to 2 it's positive, and then from 4 to infinity is also positive. So that's how you get the solution set.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yes. Yes, I'm okay now.
Okay, does anyone have another question before we a bit of move on? Anyone with a different question?